Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing on this fine Wednesday. I'm Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubie. Lubitz, happy to be with you here on No Filter and nofilter.net. We were talking about this earlier this morning on another show we do, Lubie. I thought it was kind of interesting as we were thinking about, we were supposed to yesterday launch a new project with the great Tony Bruno, who turned us on to No Filter and the good people here, as Joe and Leslie embraced us warmly and invited us to do this show. And we're hoping you guys are enjoying it. And the connection was made through Tony Bruno, the legendary radio host, a pioneer in the sports talk genre, and his lovely partner, Robin, who is a big part of everything that Tony does and has done in his career. And they're launching a new project that we were supposed to be a part of, doing what would be an audio stream every day from 10 to 12, Monday through Friday. So the original show was supposed to be on Monday. Unfortunately, some technical issues wiped that out. Do you put the blue corn in or the red one? I don't know. Got to be a little bit of a fiasco there. It was start and stop city. So that one was scrubbed. And then yesterday, Lubie, and this happens through PR companies that we work with, where we originally met Tony Bruno, which was on a radio row for a Super Bowl game many, many years ago, before he even started podcasting. This was back when he was with Fox Radio. And we happened to, be on the radio row and encountered various people that were all pushing product, which is kind of, you're essentially trading off. I don't know that it would be part of your professional dignity to hawk something. Look, this is largely a business that is about promoting products, and there are many good products, and we're happy to be affiliated with many fine organizations and businesses and betting places where we were gladly representing them on the air. That's all part of the whole business. But, in this case, you're kind of shilling for something really quickly as various celebrities are walking by, and you can book interviews with them, and that it might be anything that you're talking about. So yesterday, when we were supposed to again make this debut on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, 10 to 12 Eastern time, and around the country and around the world on their app, we had booked Steve Largent through one of those connections that we made on a radio row many years ago. And Steve Largent, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, former member of the U.S. Congress, House of Representatives out of the state of Utah, I believe.
State of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yes. And one of those states that you would never visit. Sorry, people, if you're from there. Whoever tells you, Utah, I guess you do some skiing.
Yes.
Maybe, you go and visit the Osmond Museum or something. I don't know. What else you do there? Talk about Stockton and Malone. Oh, yeah, they were great together, weren't they? Never won a championship, but, man, they were good. Greatest of all time. I don't know. How did, how did that happen? Because they were in Utah, right? Who the hell would fucking want to be there?
The Jordan area.
Juan Antonio Samaranch, remember when he was there? He's looking around the place, the Olympic guy, and he's saying, man, what a dump this city is. And then the next thing you know, he's driving out of town in a Rolls Royce. Like a Flava Flav chain of gold around his neck, saying, yes, we'll hold the Winter Olympics here. Perfect site. Bribery?
Nah,
I don't think so. But anyway, so we have Steve Largent's going to be part of this debut because he was pushing, of all things, pork rinds, which, Lubie, how do you feel about pork rinds? And I don't feel very positively about them. Being Jewish, I guess it's probably right away, a disgrace that I would even consider consuming them. But I'm not
like
a kosher
bacon.
Keeper.
I like bacon. I like sausage. I don't like pork rinds.
Pork rinds. Has there ever been a time that you've been in the snack section of any supermarket and you thought, you know what I really am craving? Big bag of pork rinds. Is that an Alabama thing? Deep South?
It's all the fat and grease of a potato chip without the flavor.
Yes, useless when it comes to taste. That was my recollection, because we've been forced to gag our way through a couple of bags while we were on those radio rows in order to talk to people the caliber of a Steve Largent.
Yep.
So we were thinking, and Tony experienced this also, and anybody that ever was on these radio rows, and everybody's selling something. And you're asking yourself, how much time am I willing to sell out? It's always awkward, too, when the PR person comes along and says, well, could you put Dr. So-and-so on?
Yep.
And I say, I don't care if this guy's Ron fucking Popeil. I don't want to put him on. He's of no interest to anybody in our listening audience whatsoever. How much of this product shilling do you want us to do? Michael Irvin comes on your show. We know the guy from his days at the University of Miami. What's the first thing he does? He spritzes some Gillette foamy on your face. Says, you know what? Every time I shave with this. It's like you shaved less than Michael Jackson. What are you talking about?
Full beard.
But the best thing anybody ever came around with was the former New York Jets center, very good ball player, and his sister was like a dynamite weightlifter speaking of the Olympics.
Yep.
Nick Mangold, who had a terrific personality. He was the perfect representative for this particular product. And Lubie, I don't know if you can describe it. It was called the Burn-O-Master.
Burn-O-Matic. The Burn-O-Matic.
Burn-O-Matic, yes. Much like the Veg-O-Matic. But he literally brought like a blowtorch to your broadcast location and held up a stake, and with a thing that looked like, unfortunately, some kind of AK-47, or as you said, it looked like the flamethrower in the Blues Brothers movie that chick was chasing Belushi with. When she just blew apart their little Chicago apartment. And you were cooking steaks with this.
Yes.
Hardly the type of thing that you would have seen on the American Sportsman many years ago with Kurt Gowdy and the boys, right? Hey, here's Bing, and who was the drunk guy? Phil Harris was the other guy who had, I don't know, did he even have any celebrity status, Phil Harris? What was he? He was just like a known drunk. And they're out there cooking some trout by lake. They could have used this Burns-O-Matic, which every time Mangold set it off, security alarms were going off all over the building and all over the city. It was incredible. So that was the one product, though, that you never stopped talking about the product. Like we didn't even acknowledge that Mangold was on the Jets. We didn't ask for his Super Bowl prediction. We didn't care what he thought about the game. But we just strictly went about our business of talking about the various uses of the Burns-O-Matic, which could have been used to what? You could have blowtorched an entire city with that thing. God forbid you should
it was
get
like a torch. It was.
Yeah, if it was malfunctioning at all.
It was like the weirdest thing. It was like a freaking torch.
It was unbelievable. All right, so yeah, that's what struck us earlier today is, the extremes that you will go to get celebrities on the show. And then, unfortunately, the show never happened, which wiped out our chance to talk about pork rinds with the Hall of Famer and former congressional representative from the great state of Oklahoma, Steve Largent. Hell of a wide receiver, too. We were having a discussion with a guy, an author on one of our other shows, and he had made and compiled a list of the top 100 NFL players of all time, which is very difficult. Even with 100, it's hard to distinguish because you have over 200 members of the Hall of Fame. So how are you going to say, that this guy doesn't belong, and yet he's wearing a gold jacket around town? And Largent would be one of those guys. I don't think he was on the top 100 list that came out of The Athletic, and yet would have been a fine distinction to have him on our initial program there on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, which we hope is going to be happening today. Hello? Is this on? We had some of those issues early with No Filter when we were trying to pull off that License to Steal program, but they have since been rectified, which is great. All right, trade deadline, Lubie, do you get excited about the trade deadline in the National Football League? Because it transpired yesterday. The bigger transaction was Josh McDaniels. Is it any surprise that he was let go? Mark Davis finally woke up and said, man, this team looks like shit. And what's the one constant? Josh McDaniels, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I thought this guy would be a pretty successful head coach, did you not? Especially after a second stint under the tutelage of the great Bill Belichick, who is within striking distance of becoming the winningest coach of all time in the National Football League. Don Shula is rolling over in his grave, except for the fact that Shula is very happy that Belichick is stuck with Mac Jones. You think they're celebrating up there in heaven somewhere? Shoes is sharing one with Chuck Noll and Chuck Knox and saying, see that? The old school way. That was the way of doing things. Although you would have to think that Belichick was more old school than he is modern day as a head coach. Maybe that's what's missing right now with the New England Patriots. Nonetheless, McDaniels, are you surprised at all that he was let go? And the general manager also bang zoom to the moon, Alice. Dave Ziegler out in Las Vegas as Mark Davis has decided. And my favorite thing about Mark Davis would have to be what? Would be the haircut. No?
Oh, yeah. It's like a kid from the 60s.
Who looks in the mirror? The guy's got billions of dollars, right? Al had all kinds of money. How many times did he sue the National Football League? Pete Rozelle is cursing the day that he ever ran into Al Davis. Moved the team to Los Angeles, moved it back to Oakland. Now they're in Las Vegas. The son, if he wasn't in the inheritance business, would he be sleeping on the streets somewhere in Las Vegas? What do you think? Seems like a decent guy. I've seen some features on Mark Davis. He seems like a reasonably sharp individual, except for the fact that he has that hideous haircut. He's kind of the white Don King, is he not, in terms of sports haircuts? Mark Davis. But he lets go of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler in one fell swoop after the Las Vegas Raiders have gotten off to a bitterly disappointing start this year. And surprisingly, the offense has been inept. Maybe not because it's led this year by Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. How do you feel about Carr as their quarterback? Was it his fault? He hasn't necessarily distinguished himself, although New Orleans did put a lot of points on the board last week in a gargantuan victory. But other than that, he's been less than inspiring this year so far for the New Orleans Saints. So was it the quarterback's fault? Josh McDaniels' fault? It came, as I said, as no surprise that this guy was let go by the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday. And you would have to think that's it, right? Blowing taps on the chances of him becoming a head coach again. I would think are slim to El Nino. Nothing. That's it. All right. Significant deals. You don't see the kind of deals that you used to see in the past. I don't even understand today's trades, where you're getting a 2034 fourth-round draft pick conditional on whether or not the team is still in the league. And that's the kind of stuff you're trading for. It's not straight-up player for player like you might have had in the old days. And a lot of different fugazi considerations go into the math of these deals. So you did see, however, the 49ers beef up their defense, and they have been very shoddy in defense on defense this year. Seattle also gets Leonard Williams, and Kevin Byard goes to Philadelphia, which was struggling in the secondary. Those would have been the most significant deals. All right, we are going to check out here. We'll see you tomorrow. Can you get us a Burns-O-Matic, Lubie, to demonstrate tomorrow here on the show?
I'll try.
Just take a blowtorch to a steak. It's really an old concept, huh? It's not like cooking it over sterno there. We're talking about a blowtorch that Nick Mangold used to bring with him, and scared the living daylights, scared the shit out of all of the people. If you were ever going to shill for a product, it would have been the Burns-O-Matic. Really an incredible device. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you next time on NoFilter.net. And maybe...